Hey there! If you're here, it means you're thinking of contributing to one or more of our games this semester at VGDev. In order to do so, most of our games each semester use Git and GitHub to handle version control. If you don't know what that means, you're probably in the right place. If you already know what they are and how to use them, skip ahead to the timestamp on screen, right now. Alright, without any further ado, let's get into what you need to know about Git and GitHub. To understand GitHub, you need to first understand Git. Git is a program that developers use for something called version control. Version control is basically a fancy way of tracking changes to files over time, allowing multiple people to potentially contribute to a project without overwriting or reverting other people's changes. Each project in Git is called a repository. Think of it as just any other folder on your computer with added hidden files that allow Git to manage and keep track of all your changes. In addition to keeping track of your changes, Git allows for having multiple different branches, where each branch represents a potentially different set of changes. If you want to move changes from one branch to another, Git calls this a quote-unquote merge. Having a repository is a great place to start with version control, but with Git alone, that repository isn't accessible to other people if it's only on your computer. That's where GitHub comes into play. GitHub is a website where you can host repositories for other people to see. This way, everyone can contribute to the hosted repository easily. I'm not going to get into the details of how exactly this works right now, as the specifics can vary. For now, let's get started with GitHub so you can learn how to get the project onto your computer. To be able to do anything on GitHub, you'll need an account. If you already have an account, go ahead and log in and skip to the timestamp on screen right now. Alright, let's make an account. First, make sure you're on GitHub's main page. The formatting and contents of the page may be different from mine, but you should still be able to find the sign up button. By clicking on it, you should be presented with a lot of different options. If you prefer to use any of the continue with options and log in with the existing account on a different platform options, feel free. For everyone else though, we'll fill out this form. We're going to choose an appropriate email we'd like to use. Next, we'll pick a username and password and change our region if necessary. Overall, this process should be relatively straightforward. Since we're done filling out the form, let's make our account. Welcome to the dashboard. After signing in with our newly created account, this is roughly what you should see. Now is a good time to check if your team lead provided a link to their repository. If so, go ahead and use that to navigate to their repository. I'll be using another example, but all the concepts should be the same. After opening the link, we should still be logged in. You can see that in the top right. And this is where we get to the fun part. Right now, we're on your team lead's copy of the repository. However, if they set it up properly, you won't have the permissions to contribute directly to the project. Not to worry though, GitHub has a feature for this that we use called forking. By clicking on this little fork button here and then clicking create fork, we only have to wait a little bit before bam! Your own personal copy of the repository is created. Now, we don't have to worry about this now since we just forked the repository, but occasionally the original repository will have changes that you need to sync with. If that's the case, clicking on this sync fork dropdown and selecting update branch should get you back up to speed. So, having your own personal fork is great and all, but how do we actually get it onto our local machine? For that, we'll use GitHub Desktop. If you already have experience cloning repositories and pushing changes back to GitHub, whether it be with GitHub Desktop or some other tool, feel free to skip to this timestamp on screen now. Otherwise, let's get started with GitHub Desktop. Installing GitHub Desktop is easy. Here I have the download pulled up already, and you can navigate to the link on screen to do so. If that link's broken or changed, doing a quick Google search for GitHub Desktop should work just as fine. Either way, download GitHub Desktop for your platform and open the installer when it finishes downloading. After installing GitHub Desktop, you should be greeted with a sign-in window in the app. Sign in with your GitHub account and you should be good to go. Since we've made a fork of the project, that repository should be visible to select on the landing page of the app. You may need to search for it by name or scroll down. After selecting it, just simply click clone and pick a location for it to put the project files. This process may take a while, so feel free to pause until you reach this screen. Alright, now that it's finished cloning, select to contribute to the parent project and continue. The project should be located exactly where you clone to, and you can open it with whichever game engine the project uses, whether it be Unity, Godot, or something else entirely. Let's say you've made some changes locally, and you're ready to submit these changes to the project. In GitHub Desktop, write a brief summary here detailing what you did, and then click Commit. You can do this at any time locally, without affecting your fork or the original project, so we can encourage doing this somewhat often to avoid losing progress if you need to revert changes at all. A good measure of something being worthy of a commit is if it adds a feature, or fixes a bug for example, although this definition is definitely loose and will vary from person to person. Once you're really done making commits locally, you can push these to your fork by clicking the Push button. This will push all of your commits locally to the fork on GitHub. This is good if you need to work across multiple machines to sync your progress, as well as pushing your final changes to the original project repository, which we'll do now. Navigate to your fork on GitHub and click on the drop-down labeled Contribute, and then click Open Pull Request. Name it a fitting name that describes what your additions are, and then put a fitting description that details what you've done in enough detail for a team lead to understand where to find your changes and test them. GIFs and other visual attachments are great supplements to indicate something you've changed. Once you're done, click Create Pull Request and voila! Your changes are ready to be reviewed by a team lead. While GitHub should notify them about new pull requests, it doesn't hurt to message them on Discord as well. That's it really. Obviously there are some smaller details and issues that may come up, but this is all you really need to know to get started contributing to a project. If you need any more questions, feel free to reach out to any of the team leads or leadership.